Welcome to Films Apart, the podcast where we poke fun at buried flops, unearth hidden gems, and explore timeless classics.
So grab yourself some popcorn, sit back, and let's break these films apart.
Hello.
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 Today's episode is Once Upon a Time in America.
Yeah, Sergio Leone's classic final film.
Yes, of the trilogy, which I didn't realise it was a trilogy.
Of his life.
Of his life as well?
Yeah. Last film he made.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that.
So go easy on him.
Well, I'm not going to. It's a long film. He could have made 2 films before the end of his life.
Did you read anything about it?
Nah, I don't do that.
Well, his initial idea was to make 2 3-hour films and then a third hour-and-a-half film or something like that.
Oh, okay. Well, interestingly, the version that I had was a 2-disc part. I had to swap the disc halfway through, and about 30 minutes into the second disc was an intermission.
Yeah.
No, I thought that was quite cool.
I mean,
so I went and put my dinner in the oven.
I watched it on Disney, so I didn't have to change discs, but it
was on Disney Plus.
Yeah, but
for fuck's sake!
Sorry, I should have told you.
It's fine. I got it from the library.
But there was an intermission.
That would have made it a lot easier then.
But the intermission wasn't halfway through, was it? It was a bit further on.
No. That's like I say. The discs were split into 2. Obviously, I assumed 2 hours per, or maybe an hour 50 about per disc.
So, what did you think?
I did like it. Aspects of it. Very long film. You know that I struggle with run times.
I thought you were going to say something else then.
What?
You know that I struggle. We'll come to it.
Well, yeah. There's other aspects that I did struggle with it. But let's give a synopsis first.
Okay.
Do you want to?
What, you want me to do it?
Yeah, I did Eraserhead. You can do this one.
Oh yeah, Eraserhead. That really had a synopsis, didn't it? It was like 2 lines. This is quite a difficult thing to give a synopsis to, isn't it? It's an epic film, isn't it? Lots of things go on in this film. You could read a synopsis and it'll tell you something very brief, but what's the log line?
As long as the film. It says, told in flashback, the film follows Noodles from a tough kid in a Jewish slum in New York's Lower East Side through his rise to bootlegger and then mafia boss, a journey marked by violence, betrayal and remorse. He doesn't become a mafia boss though, does he?
Well, he becomes one of.
Yeah, but I don't really feel like that explains it very well. The film basically
begins in the middle. Right. So we'll go through it bit by bit rather than giving a synopsis. Let's go through it.
I'll try the synopsis once more.
Go on then. Take it away.
The story of Noodles is told to us in flashbacks and flashes forwards. It's not in chronological order. So we're showing his childhood, his sort of...
There's a lot of flashing.
There's a lot of flashing in it. There's a lot of flashing, a lot of flashbacks. So we're showing his childhood as a young Jewish boy in sort of slums of New York. And as he grows older, he becomes this mafia boss with a group of friends that he grew up with. After he served some time in prison, he comes back and they've forged a sort of empire off of his back. And then we're shown him as an old man after all of this, after having fled from New York because of his girlfriend and one of his best friends.
Well, all of his friends.
All of his friends were murdered, apart from one who was beaten to a pulp. He was going to take some money that they all shared between them. They had $1 million stashed away from when they were children. They'd been pocketing it away in this little briefcase. So he was going to take that money, but it was already gone.
Yeah.
So he's gone and lived a life where he should have lived as a king, as he saw, just getting on by up until his old age when he receives a letter to return to New York.
Yeah.
That's about it.
So thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. It's a hard film to summarise because we're trying to summarise 4 hours as well. It's a long film.
That's what I mean. It's an epic.
Yeah.
We're probably better off bumbling along with it, really.
Yeah.
As we, do.
Yeah, we do that very well.
So it opens on an opium den, which it ends on as well.
Yep.
So we know that Noodles is traumatized by something. He's escaping something, isn't he?
Yeah.
Which you learn in the middle of the film.
Yes. Should we speak of it in chronological order?
Okay, yeah. Before that, so we go back in time to when he was a kid.
Yes. So as a child, him and his friend had a little rat pack group of little mini criminals. They'd rob from drunks, carry out different jobs for like little criminals.
Hoodlums.
Yeah, the little hoodlums.
And what did you feel about that? I thought that you might like that.
I thought that was the strongest point in the film.
Yeah,
I really liked it. It was very like Oliver Twist in the sort of little criminal, obviously a bit darker, but I really enjoyed that aspect of the film. I think it was the stronger part of seeing these young boys sort of forced into crime because there was nothing else for them, and that sort of bond that they forged as children to have each other's back, I thought was strong, which then obviously leads up to the youngest boy, I believe,
getting killed.
Yeah, one of the boys gets shot by a rival gangster. But
that's really the kind of story of them, isn't it? What I find really interesting about this film and why I like it, and it is, I don't know whether it's one of my favourite films, but it's up there.
Yeah.
Is that it's about people.
Yeah. It's about the little people.
It's about. It feels like real people. You've got the beginning where you've got these kids just growing up, this coming of age beginning, where, for example, things they're exploring their sexuality and stuff like that comes into it. That whole stuff with the Peggy, the neighbour, Peeping Tom. He sees the girl he's attracted to, this girl that's already appears like a much higher kind of class than him, and he's just in awe of her.
Yeah.
And then you've got this bit with Peggy, the neighbour, who will have sex with them for a cake.
Yeah, she's a young girl prostituting herself off.
And it feels like kids that are finding their way in the world without any guidance from anyone.
Yeah, there's not really...
There's no parent figures.
There's no parent figures, actually. I hadn't thought on that at all.
There's nobody to sort of shape anybody or to bring people up in the right way. So these kids are just trying to earn a living.
Yeah. Yeah.
Noodles is the main guy, and the film really starts to take off when he meets his closest friend, who becomes his closest friend, Max.
Yes.
They're about to roll a drunk.
Yeah.
And they come out, and as they're about to do it, they see this cart that's about to go, because there's a policeman on the other side of the road. They see this cart, and they're like, this is our opportunity. When this cart passes, we'll roll the drunk, nab his coat and his watch, and scarp her. What happens is, Max, who they don't know at this point, is on the cart. He spies them. He sees what they're trying to do. Then he jumps... He gets off the cart, puts his arm around the drunk. He goes, "Come on, uncle!" Pulls the uncle onto the cart and drives away. They don't know at that point that it isn't his uncle.
No,
it isn't until later on, and then they meet him again, and he shows him the watch, and then he realizes that.
And that watch, actually, the passing of the watch between them becomes a sort of motif in the film. Right to the end of this pocket watch that they steal, and they're arguing over who it belongs to, whose reward it is for this score.
And that's what I think a lot of the film's about.
Yeah.
It's about the two of them. It's about two men with egos, like battling each other. Yeah. Even though they're very close.
Yeah.
There's still that rivalry there that they can't kind of break free from.
No.
Especially Max.
So then, after the murder of one of Noodle's closest friends, he loses it, ends up stabbing the rival mob boss, and then a policeman as well in a rage.
Yeah.
He's imprisoned for, 20, 30 years, maybe.
I think it must be less, I would have thought. Maybe 15.
Anyway, he returns from out of prison. He's picked up by his friend Max.
Yeah.
first person he sees when he gets out, and he's introduced to this empire that Max and his childhood friends have sort of built.
I just want to go back because I think that the bit when the kid gets shot is quite a...
Yeah, that was a scene that hit me quite a lot. Because he reminded me of my little brother a bit as well, the child, because my brother used to do a lot of sort of like stage performance things at that sort of age, and he'd always be playing like in Oliver Twist. He'd have his little flat cap on and his little coat, and I was like, oh, this is just like my brother, I like this character. And then he dies, and it was like, oh fuck.
It was quite shocking, wasn't it?
Yeah, you don't expect it.
You don't expect it.
Because he's the youngest as well, and the sort of, it really hits you. So I think he's a sort of heart of the group as well, isn't he, this young boy?
And that's when it stops being child's play and becomes the real deal. Because before that, Bugsy beats the crap out of them, but they survive.
Yeah.
And then there is a threat to their life when Bugsy comes after them. Obviously, they kill the boy.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, he goes crazy and he stabs him, kills Bugsy, and stabs the policeman as well, which makes you think, how did he come out of prison alive?
Yeah.
But the fact that he kills Bugsy leaves it wide open for them.
Yeah.
So while he's in prison, they build up this crime empire based on prohibition, really, selling booze when it was illegal.
So they have a speakeasy, don't they, that they've put together underneath Moe's Tavern.
Yeah.
Not from The Simpsons.
No, yeah. Moe's Delicatessen, I suppose it was, really, wasn't it? Because it wouldn't be the tavern. Because
and then we have him being introduced to this new sort of life of crime after coming out of prison, don't we?
Yeah, he comes out and he's got to very quickly get used to being a part of a crime empire rather than being just the kids they were.
Yeah.
And he never gets past that. He always wants to be the kid who's committing these crimes and earning a buck here and there. He's happy with a little bit of money here and there. He doesn't have the same ambition that his friend Max has.
No, he doesn't want to be on the same playing field as the sort of big dogs, does he? He sees it as that's what's to be their downfall, and eventually, I suppose it is.
So during that bit when he comes out, there's the jewel heist.
Yeah.
I'll talk about this because I know that you mentioned it to me before. So I think it's an interesting thing to talk about these things in film and values and whatnot. There's a jewel heist. They're asked to steal some diamonds. They get a tip, and the guy says to them, "Just don't touch the girl."
Yeah.
You can do anything you want, but just don't touch the girl, and that means the girl who works at the jeweller's. So they get to the jeweller's. The four of them, now grown up, pull off this heist, get these jewels, and Noodles, Robert De Niro's character, then rapes the woman.
Yeah. Quite graphically. Yeah. He's told to go shut her up. He rapes her.
So your message to me was about this when you said people are going to hate me because I'm hating on another of Sergio Leone's films, but that was one of the reasons, because he was such a hateful protagonist.
Yeah, I struggled with his character at the end of his life. I found it compelling. I found them the stronger parts of the film when it's an old man sort of looking back on his sort of his youth and his adulthood sort of shamefully, and then this young boy coming up in a world that no child should ever have to be brought up in, especially not bringing themselves up. I found them most compelling, but in that centre bit where he's just a complete bastard, he's a rapist, he doesn't seemingly have any redeemable qualities other than wanting to continue this strong forged like friendship with him and his close friends. Even the parts with what was her name?
Oh, Peggy.
Peggy, yeah. Even the bits with Peggy where he's like in that bathroom scene, I just found a lot of that really uncomfortable. And obviously that was a very different scene because it's a young boy hitting puberty. He's got these urges, but then he never leaves them urges, I suppose.
But I think that's the point of it, isn't it? Like, he was a kid when he went to prison. Yeah. So when he was a kid, and he's just exploring his sexuality, and he's like, you show me yours, I'll show you mine, that sort of kiddish thing. And then he goes to prison, doesn't grow up, comes out. He's still that man, only he's a lot more dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
And they've got a lot more power, and so he can do these things.
Yeah.
And maybe he's got a lot of bitterness. I don't know. I'm not trying to defend.
No. I know you're just giving being devil's advocate.
In a way, yeah, and also because that's what I quite like about this film is that there's psychology in it. There's humans in it. What I find there's characters in it, which was lacking from Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yes, and I think it's not that I had a problem with these aspects being explored. I think it's just I struggled because he's meant to be the protagonist, and it's not like they ever really give you someone else to sort of cling on to and maybe follow their story. Apart from his friend Mo, I think he was the only character that I really connected to.
Yeah, because he's almost removed from it.
Yeah.
So he doesn't seem nasty.
No.
And he's the brother of the girl who Noodles is in love with.
Yes.
Although he has a funny way of showing it.
Yeah, exactly.
See, I mean, I found that the rape scene in the Jewelers, obviously, it was hard to watch. But it was less hard to watch than the one with the girl he loved. Yeah,
the woman he loves, to show her that he loves her. He takes her out to a private venue that's been closed, throws this amazing meal for her, has all the waiting staff there just to serve them, buys her whatever she wants. And I think this as well is a good highlight of how there's that class divide of how when she's ordering, she knows what she wants. She tells him to order and he goes, I'll just have the same. And then she says, you choose the wine. And he says, you choose. Like he doesn't know anything about this life. I think that's interesting. And the fact that he's trying to be a romantic. And that was a part that actually I felt, okay, there is a good guy in here who's obviously had a tough upbringing. And then that's all thrown away when in the car they're having their goodbye because she's got to move away to Hollywood the next morning. And his way to show his love, or it's not even to show his love, I think it's out of...
Get off.
It's like, I need to do this before you go, and he rapes her in the back of the car.
Yeah.
And
it's a very, very horrible scene. She really doesn't want it in any way. Whereas in the Jewelers, she's a bit perverse, isn't she? That woman.
Yeah.
You know, we see her come back in later. She is like that.
Yeah.
Whereas Deborah's not like that at all.
No.
And so you get this really horrible scene.
Yeah.
And it is highlighted by the way the chauffeur deals with it.
Yeah.
Because then the chauffeur, who is presumably going to be scared of this mob.
Yeah, he's a
mobster.
He doesn't stop it, because obviously...
He doesn't stop it to begin with, but then he gets to a point where he can't take it anymore, and he stops the car.
Yeah.
That seems to wake up Noodles. Noodles gets out the car. He goes away, and then the chauffeur's like, just give me a minute. And he goes over to him, gives him his hat and his coat, and then Noodles gets money, and he goes to give him money, and he refuses to take the money off him, and he takes her home, highlighting it. And then you realise that's why Noodles is getting high.
Yeah.
Because of his regrets around that.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing about the characters in this film is they're complex.
Yeah.
He isn't out and out evil.
No.
He just doesn't know how to be anything else.
No.
He's brought up on the streets. He's ended up in prison. He's tried to be this person that he thinks this girl who he is in love with wants.
There's the person he thinks she deserves, but he can't keep it up. He can't be that man.
Well, there's a turning point before, when he's a kid, before he goes to prison. He's in there. It's the scene with the two of them. Yeah. They clearly like each other. Yeah. She's calling him a bum, but at the same time she says, I wish you weren't.
Yeah.
And then Max comes in, spies on him, which immediately feels like there's some sort of envy there with those two characters. And then he goes out, he hears Max call him, and she goes, go on, your mother's calling.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't want to go. He wants to stay in there with her. Then he goes out to see what Max wants. Max goes, he's going to divvy up the money. And he goes, I'll do it later. And he wants to go back into her.
Yeah.
But before he gets a chance to go back into her, Bugsy comes out, beats the crap out of them. Yeah. That, to me, feels like the turning point. Yeah. That's the point when he can't
he knows
go
he can't
back.
Have that life, no.
He could have gone that way. He didn't. He went this way. And then after that, the choices he makes are more on that side of life.
Yeah.
But I would say that he is a more sympathetic character than Max.
Found Max's story a little bit more compelling as this sort of... He's so desperate and insecure and really just wants power. I thought it was good antagonist.
Yeah, Max just wants to win, though.
Yeah.
It seems.
Yeah.
To me,
You never feel like Noodles has an issue with Max. It's very one-sided.
you feel like Noodles is trying to live life and do the things he wants to do.
Yeah.
Whereas it does feel like Max is trying to get one over on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't just feel like it.
Yeah,
That's the way the film
constantly.
ends. In the middle of the film, they go after Noodles.
Mm-hmm.
Noodles, they don't find him. He's in an
No.
opium den at the time.
Yeah.
They kill his girlfriend. We think they kill all of his friends apart
Yeah.
from Mo.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he is given this tip to come and do one last job. So
Yeah.
that's why he comes back to New York.
Yeah.
He, in the locker, he finds money. He's given this money, and the job is to kill Bailey. He doesn't even know who Bailey is.
No. So he's invited back from, I think is he living in, he moves away somewhere, I can't remember where.
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Under his new identity, he receives a letter inviting him back to a party for Senator Bailey. He returns back home, doesn't he? He finds the money, like you say, and he's to carry out a hit on this Bailey, who then turns out to be Max,
Yeah.
who we presume dead in a car explosion, I believe.
When the building goes up, I think, isn't it? Or they're killed by the police or
Yeah.
something. But the police were in on it.
Yeah.
And so the police have killed the others,
Yeah.
and he's the only survivor, but he was the one that made that happen.
Yeah.
He got the police to collude with him. And not only did he steal the money
Mm-hmm.
and carry on with his political ambitions that he had that
Yeah.
Noodles didn't want,
Mm-hmm.
he also has stolen the girl that he was in love with, Deborah, and has had a child with her. And
Yeah.
that's the moment when Noodles... Well, you don't know whether he knows,
Mm-hmm.
but you suspect he knows, because when Noodles meets the kid, it's before he's met Bailey, and the kid looks
Yeah,
exactly the
spitting
same
image.
as... well, it's obviously the same actor.
Yeah.
And again, you've got that close-up on his face where he's like, what am I seeing here?
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes to the house and he interacts with Bailey,
Mm-hmm.
who he refuses.
Yeah, he doesn't acknowledge as
call
his old friend Max.
Max.
He acts as if he doesn't know him.
Yeah. And when Bailey or Max asks him to kill him, he says no. And it's quite he's quite romantic about his views on their friendship. He still has this feeling of friendship that Max
Seemingly never had.
Well, apart from until the end, when he's kind of giving him the money and saying, please come and kill me, I want to make up for what I've done.
Yeah. And interestingly, he gets the pocket watch out. At the end of that film, it's coming to the end of their lives. This is a piece that's followed them throughout the film. And he gets it out almost as if, like, this is me. You kill me, I hand it back, you've won. And he refuses.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
Because it was never about that to Noodle.
Yeah. And then at the end, he walks away. So in a way, he does win.
Yeah.
He walks away, and then he goes out into the street. And then as he's walking down the street, he sees Bailey Max come out. And then you see a dump truck come past, and he walks behind the back of the dump truck. And then the dump truck goes past, and you just see the swirling of the mechanisms.
Is he meant to have jumped in it?
Yeah.
There's no blood, so I didn't know whether that was...
I know. It's always...
veg going around in there.
Yeah.
I was a little like, I think he's meant to have gone in there, but then I was expecting, because he disappears and you don't see anything happen, you don't hear any screams or anything, I was expecting him to then appear behind and maybe some sort of fight where they're trying to get each other in there or something. But
yeah, I found it an enigma the first time I watched it. And I guess it is made that way because there isn't any blood. You can't escape the fact that there isn't any blood. You can't escape that. Of course, there's doubts.
Yeah, especially when the whole rest of the film's been very brutal and gory. Yeah. I think to there be no signs that a man's just jumped inside the back of this bin lorry or garbage truck, whatever you are.
So who knows? Really, we don't know. But that is what I think is being inferred because there was no way out for him.
No.
The film has an interesting release history as well. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Yeah, I did read a bit into it. With that ending, I thought that was more powerful, and then it goes back to the opium trip when he's younger again. Sort of like this is the moment we're shown what he's doing as his friends and family are murdered, and it's him just trying to escape the guilt of his actions.
Yeah.
And that in turn is why his friends die, I suppose, because he can't face his past. Maybe
he gave the police a tip.
Yeah. Because
to try and save him.
Yeah, he wanted to be arrested with Max to stop him doing this big bank job.
Yeah.
Which Max has dreamed of from childhood.
So it's tragic.
Yeah.
And I do feel for the character, as much as he is obviously a very, very bad.
Yeah, and I think
or he does some very bad things. At least.
I think as well. It's obviously they're meant to reflect the nature of the country. And there's a line in there that says this country's still growing up. And I think the fact that they're such broken characters and they have so many flaws, that's obviously meant to mimic the fact of like the underbelly of America in this time of where it doesn't really know what it is.
Again, it's the history of America.
Yeah.
You've got the Prohibition period where you had all these gangsters, and then when Prohibition ended, their business ended.
Yeah.
And they needed to do something else.
Yeah.
Now, Joe Kennedy, which is JFK's dad, was a booze runner. I mean, that was his job. That's where the Kennedys come from. They come from that sort of gangster stock.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's American politics. There's so many American politicians that have got this dodgy kind of background.
Yeah.
Or have come from families with that background. That's what the country's built on.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It is interesting. And that's what he's trying to tell, isn't it? Once upon a time in America, once upon a time in the West. He's trying to tell a story of the one in the middle we haven't watched, the Once Upon a Time in the Revolution or whatever. Presumably, I don't really know what that's about. Is it about the Spanish?
Maybe it's about the end of the West.
There's no point in us commenting on it because we don't.
Yeah, we're not going to watch it. So I just looked dead into the camera then. That felt really weird.
Howdy, folks.
That's about all, folks.
I thought you were having a stroke for a moment.
No, I thought, I enjoyed the film. I think it was good. I think it was just very long. And like you said, there were different versions of this film released, weren't there?
Yeah, so the one version was they cut it down to 139 minutes, I believe, which is still quite a long film.
Yeah.
Over 2 hours.
I think that was the US release, isn't it?
There was a US release and it was panned, critically panned.
Hated.
They released the full version in Cannes, I believed. I believed. I don't believe it anymore.
No.
I believe, and that was critically heralded. Everybody thought it was brilliant. But he died before it got the critical praise that it has now.
That's a shame. Yeah. I think it's a very strong film. Like you say, it's one of them. It's a complete epic.
See, I love that stuff. I love it when you get this whole big world and all these lives in it, especially if there's characters in it that are complex.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see him go from doing so many of these spaghetti westerns where the protagonist doesn't really matter. It's about the story and they're sort of a nobody who's unspoken. They're almost just like a silhouette of justice. And then to have him have such deep character arcs of so many different characters throughout this film, it's interesting to see him go from that to the complete opposite side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed the rise of the unions. That was a really interesting side plot. That's a part of that sort of middle journey that I really enjoyed, and I wish they leaned into it a bit more. With the whole them being paid off to protect this sort of union advocate.
The whole Teamsters
stuff, I really liked that. Because I thought that was really interesting because it obviously leaned into more obviously like the sort of rise of America and what it became and was becoming of being this sort of political.
And the murky blurring between unions and politicians and gangsters.
And the mobs. I thought that sort of stuff, I loved that bit. I think that's probably one of my favourite parts of the film. Also, I thought it was interesting seeing James Wood in aged up makeup because it took me until that point to recognise him. Have you ever seen Scary Movie 2?
Well, I did, but I don't remember it.
It's the one that parodies The Exorcist, and he plays the priest in that opening scene of The Exorcist, where you obviously have him doing the exorcism. He plays the parody version of that, where she's like, "Lick my pussy." I just thought it took me the whole film, and then once I saw him as that, I was like, I can't unsee it now. It's like it's so weird to have this man do such an amazing performance over 4 hours to then he's just in this role for a parody film. That seemed like a bit odd.
So another thing that I'll mention, actually, which we shouldn't forget, is the music. Obviously, that's a very famous part of it. I think the music was written before the film.
Okay.
And so like an opera, I guess.
Yeah. It did feel very opera.
Yeah.
The music sort of...
Did your head in, you said?
Yeah, it did. I said this earlier on. By the end of it, I was sick of the music, and I was going to do some research by listening to some other podcasts on how they've spoke on this, and I couldn't find any. So when I put it into Spotify, all it was doing was just playing the music, and I was like, I've heard enough of this. 4 hours of this music is enough, like in one sitting. But no, it was powerful.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
and also they had the thing with but what is it? The like pipe flute,
the panpipey thing, yeah,
and how that played into the soundtrack of the score, same as the first. The West.
I've seen this film probably 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
I never noticed that before.
No, and
so
I wonder
that's only because we watched Once Upon a Time.
I wonder
in
if
the West.
that's a motif that's carried on in the second film as well.
Yeah, whether there's somebody
sort of
playing
score being played into. What was interesting?
An accordion or something.
Yeah. Trumpet.
Yeah, less subtly. Because the thing about those things is they're slightly hidden, aren't they? Like a harmonica and a panpipey thing, whatever it is hidden.
It's got like a violin.
There was only one moment when he was playing it, wasn't
there?
Yeah,
it was only one moment, and it wasn't hit. It was one of the side. Was it Mo? Maybe
one of his mates.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Mo, but it was one of the others. Yeah.
I think it was the one with the weird eye.
Yeah.
Where his eye was shut off the time.
I thought it was interesting. I'd go back a little bit because last night I went to see A Complete Unknown, which is the Bob Dylan film.
Oh, yeah.
And when we came out, we were talking about Bob Dylan. Beck was like, I really didn't want to see that film, and I still feel the same. She didn't enjoy it. It wasn't her sort of film.
Is she a Bob Dylan fan?
No, she's not. And the film didn't do enough on its own. And I am a bit of a Bob Dylan fan.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. I didn't think it was amazing. But anyway, we came out and we were discussing about Bob Dylan as a person and how he came across. And she went, "Well, he was obviously a complete dick." And I was like, I didn't get that from the film. I didn't pick that up at all. I just thought, like he did some dickish things sometimes, but I didn't think he was a complete dick.
No.
And she was so like vociferous about it, but it reminded me of your feelings were like, it was just a horrible protagonist.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting.
I was a lot more vocal after watching it. I think having time to reflect on it. I hope I've not came across quite as bad as I did when I was messaging you after it. But
I don't think it's bad.
Thought I despised him as a protagonist after first watching it, and I think looking back on it, it's like I can appreciate him more now. But in that moment, you just feel this pure hatred for him for everything he's done, and he never gets his comeuppance.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that's the power of film, isn't it?
Yeah.
That films can do that to us, and it all depends on what you watch films for as well. If you're watching films for Harrison Ford, or like I said to you, like Obi-Wan was like my hero.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's different, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's the thing. I've always getting into film. I got into it because of like I'd loved like Star Wars and Ghostbusters and all of these franchises, and then from a young age starting to get into Marvel and getting into it, and it's like I want to write these like blockbusters, and then obviously you find I did an undergraduate in film, and then now I'm doing an MA in script writing. There's a lot more art to it that you're not sort of aware of just as a cinema viewer, I think, a lot of the time. And once you start getting into it, there's so much that I hadn't explored. And like a Razorhead last episode, I came into my undergraduate at sort of 18 thinking like it's entertainment, but there's so many other reasons why a film could be made.
On that, talking about the Razorhead and thinking about the episodes we've done recently, this has been really valuable to me doing this podcast, because of my background, you've got more of a background in film than I have. You've studied it. I haven't really. My background's in the theatre, and so that transition to film has been very difficult. That the last 3 films have really highlighted, that aspect of a film that is not about dialogue.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in the West, 15 pages of dialogue in the whole film, and it's however many hours long.
Yeah.
It's long.
Yeah, it's long.
And the last film we watched, The Razorhead's the same. There's hardly any dialogue in it. It's just sound.
Yeah, and like we said in the last episode, the dialogue that is in it, it's not of substance. It's not really needed. It's just sort of there to add to the unease and the sort of...
Yeah. Whereas Once Upon a Time in America is a bit different. There's more dialogue in Once Upon a Time in America, and there's dialogue that's probably more important. But there's also that classic Sergio Leone scenes where there's just Robert De Niro walking through the streets with a troubled look on his face, or or all those close-ups, the silent film stuff, which is what makes Ennio Morricone such a perfect fit for him. Yeah, really.
Yeah, I think having that sort of, it's very Western music, isn't it? Like for a lot of it, I think it adds to these characters.
Anyway, we've probably waffled on enough, haven't we? I guess.
Yes.
Have we has this been 4.5 hours long? Or
it's 50 minutes, but with the editing, I reckon it's probably hopefully about 38 minutes long.
That's quite precise.
Yeah.
With the hopefully it's about 38 minutes and 11 seconds long.
No seconds. 38 or 37. Popcorn score. Shall I go first?
Go for it.
I'm going to give it I think a 4 out of 5. I know.
I'm shocked.
I was coming into it thinking I'd give it a 3 out of 5, I think, but I think it deserves a lot more recognition. My only problem is I struggle with long films because my attention span is fucking dreadful. And it's not because of TikTok, it's just because it is. I don't like watching TikTok and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to be in the right frame of mind for it, don't you?
Yeah, and I think because I was watching it, I watched it yesterday in some free time that I had. Like I woke up at 9 o'clock in the morning to watch this. And then it's like
I took my whole day.
Yeah. I finished it at 1:30, and then it was like, fucking hell, I got to get ready for work in an hour. I think I need to, when you're watching it for a podcast and watching it because you're like, this is a film I've been meaning to watch for a long time, it's like you can't always get into that headspace of sitting down and really preparing yourself to see it.
I struggle a little bit with long films. There seems to be way too many long films lately. I would give it 5 out of 5, and I kind of knew that coming into it. I actually thought coming into it, I'm going to give it 5 salty popcorn, and he's going to give it 3. That's what I honestly thought. I did, yeah.
I was intending on, so.
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10 overall?
Yeah.
So that's one of our, alongside Hot Fuzz?
Yeah, that's one of our highest. Yeah. So,
also, I've been thinking quite a lot on how I scored Wifnell and I. Yeah. And I think it deserved 4 out of 5.
So that makes it 9
So that
as
would
well?
be 9 as well.
So that's 3 9s.
So 999. Cool. I don't know what that was.
Was it something? Is it from something?
It was going into Brooklyn 99 because they shout 99, and then I don't know, I added the other 9, and then it sounded like I was doing a German accent. So it's
did it? I did sound like a German accent to me. It sounded like it sounded like a different accent.
Okay. I think it deserves more because having shed more light on it and thinking back on it and writing some assignments, I realised it's actually been an inspiration for a piece that I've been working on, and sort of leaning into that absurdist sort of comedy.
How's your New Year's resolution of trying to drink as much as with now coming along? Have you had a drink this year yet?
I don't think I have. I don't think I've drank anything.
So like all New Year's resolutions, nothing's come of it.
Down the drain. I'll just wait, and December I'll smash it out and just do a lot of catching up at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So what are we doing next?
If anyone has any ideas or suggestions for films, please message us on Instagram. Films.apart on Instagram. Comment on wherever you watch our podcasts, whether that be Spotify. Subscribe.
Wherever you watch our podcasts or listen to our podcasts.
Download. Give us a review. We need more reviews so that we can try and gain more listeners and carry on doing
Send us money.
Send checks and money addressed to me and Lewis to Bath Spa University.
Bath Spa,
anything, just to get us a coffee during filming. Tell us what you think of the episodes. Whether you think we're chatting shit We have no right to say the things we're saying. Anything.
I'm certain that half of what we chat is shit.
Yes.
So, tell us.
Yeah, tell us. We need to know, or we're going to keep doing it. So
that's that then.
That's that. That's it for this week.
See you next time.
See you next time. Thanks for listening.